So we're starting off in the new world of Copperdale. A quick little overview. I was trying to figure out if I could move into a house or build a house, and it looked like I had to build my own house to fit my family. So I don't go over everything that's brand new in this pack. I did touch on the fact that there are curved walls and different doors for different curvatures, but it's really buggy, so please play at your own risk. And then I started to get into the actual building of it. So we did get a whole bunch of new stuff. A lot of it I did not touch on just because it didn't fit with my build. And I go through and I play test it a lot. As you can see, we get 2 new sets of stairs, but they both looked too much like they belonged in a school. And you have the ability to build your own school in the game, but it didn't really fit with a nice suburban house. We get 4 new doors, some for the school and staff. Then we get a double door and an archway that is categorized as a small wall arch, but doesn't actually fit on the small wall height, at least not without the move objects cheat on. We got 1 new medium wall height door and nothing for the tall wall height. So here I'm just trying to figure out how to do the best layout for the upstairs that I could. I end up going back and I changed a lot of what I did. This was recorded from my stream the other day when the pack first came out on the 28th. And so I tried to condense it down. You can see this right here will change. I added a lot of diagonals in the upstairs, and then I go back and I get rid of them anyway because it just didn't fit. And I don't like how skinny a 1-tile diagonal wall is. So I tried to make it 2, and then you can see I've added several diagonals, and you'll watch them disappear. I wanted to add a way for the teens to sneak out because that was a big selling point of the pack. Is this window in particular, it's not able to happen with any other window, and you have to have the tile on both sides of the window onto flat ground, or at least onto even ground, for them to be functional. Otherwise, when you place them, they will show up as orange, not red, but orange, to let you know that there's still a window, they'll still let light in, but you cannot use them as intended. So play with that as at your own risk. You can see a really quick overview as I'm scrolling through. There's a lot of Art Deco furniture, which I love. We didn't really get a whole lot of that. But these other little ivory terraces, I was unsuccessful in placing them without the move objects cheat on, and I end up turning that little area downstairs into a sunroom because there was ivy covering everything. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for this house, but I was trying to get in as many new items as I could. So I'm just placing all the doors and kind of fixing up where I want my windows to be. These are some of the new wallpapers that we get. It's actually all the wallpapers that we get. And I only end up using, I believe, 3 of them. 1 in the toddler's room, 1 in each bathroom, and then 1 for the exterior. And then I put all the same walls on the outside, and you can see it pops up with a little dialogue box, and they show up as orange, and that just says that they're not functional, or they're not playable. But I still wanted them, so it wasn't a sore thumb of you can't, like, your teenager is sneaking out. I thought that kind of defeated the whole point of it. And then, yeah, you can see me placing the windows for the sunroom. It's not super effective, but I think it still adds a level of privacy. and some ivy did show up on this ladder, which ends up glitching for me later on. But that ended up being okay, and we got it fixed. Here is one of the new beds. Like I said, it's very Art Deco. And then I just wanted to go ahead and play test and make sure that you could use the window. And it really wasn't wanting to work for me at first, because Sims will go with what they think is the easiest path. So I tried locking the doors, and I still had to tell her to climb up the ladder in order to be able to use it. And so you can see me getting a little bit frustrated with it because it should just be easy. So I thought maybe if I took away the ladder and she had no other way to get in because that door is locked, then I was successful in being able to use the ladder. I end up being successful later on when the ladder is back. So it's not as buggy as I initially thought. And then I just struggled with putting the ladder back where it was supposed to be. So I end up giving up on it for a moment and coming back to it later on. But you'll see this later in the video as well. I place some of the curtains that I want there, and it's still functional. The curtains don't snap to this window how they'll snap to others, but that doesn't really bother me personally. But you'll see I pull out a couple of the single beds, and there are 5 single beds and I believe 4 double beds. I ended up using single beds for the teenagers. There are also 5 new desks. I used 2 of them. And I tried to make the rooms similar but different. There is a new pad, or new tablet, and 4 new computers that come in the game, but 2 of them are locked. And there are a whole bunch of chairs. The one that I place in the daughter's room is one of the new streamer chairs. The lights I end up putting up, as well as the stereo, are all part of the pre-order package. So as long as you pre-order before September 8th, then you will get all 3 of those items. If not, in my opinion, they're not really a big loss. I do personally just really like that stereo. There's also supposedly these LED lights, which I forgot to check in-game if you can actually change the color of. But so we do get some LED lights. I know that that's a pretty big thing in pop culture, is to put LED lights around your ceiling. I like the look of it, and then I layered 2 of these lights to make a very nice canopy for these toddlers. And I end up placing this bookshelf, but I will go back and move it later, square off those walls, and then I think I just have the one diagonal. I end up going through and placing some of these lights. They are also new from the pack. And eventually I will put a computer in the hallway. I will try to remember to add that. And you can see here I'm starting to go through some of the closets and the cabinetry, because we got several new closets, but I am not personally a big fan of them, because they only have 1 slot for clothing. But as you can see, some of the items only had 3 hangers, and that doesn't look like a very full closet for a teenager. Especially with thrifting in the game, I would assume that your Sims would probably look at least like they have a lot of new clothes. You can also see the cheerleader mats and the football. Those are all new, and they are functional. Your Sim will get better with the cheerleader mat as they age up as they gain the fitness skill. There's not a separate skill for cheerleading. And then you can also see some of the new wall decorations here. So the son is an overachiever, so I just wanted to give him a very nice big collage with some of his awards. And later we go ahead and we add some clutter throughout, but I added one of the new dressers and our only full-length mirror. We do get 3 new mirrors. 1 is full-length, 2 are on the walls. I gave the parents one of the new double beds, and I've seen that for the majority of YouTube simmers, that's functional, but for me, there was something about this particular setup that wasn't. We also do get 2 new plants, 4 new dressers, 3 new couches, couch/love seats, and like I said earlier, we have a total of 6 new doors. We have 4 TV stands or coffee tables, and lots of good swatches. I'm not really a fan of these in particular, just because of the separation between the seats. I thought it was a little bit too obvious with the stitching. And we get 5 new rugs. I end up using, I believe, only 2 of the rugs in different swatches, and then I use some other decorative items from other packs. Because I really feel like it just fleshed out the build. And then you'll see I go through and I start adding some clutter throughout. And I used what I know and from stereotypes what I think about how teenagers act. I was, believe it or not, once a teenager, and I'm still fairly immature in certain ways. And then I added a get-together closet in the hallway. I felt like that was pretty realistic. I don't like how the doors are clipping, but if I had moved them over to stop clipping with the wall, then they would have clipped with their other wall. So if I had made the build bigger, then that wouldn't have been a problem, but that is one of my grievances with the game, is that there's a lot of clipping where I feel that there probably shouldn't be. I did really like the style of the doors, and so here you can see me actually play testing it, and I still, to this day, don't really know what was wrong with it, but I end up going through and changing it later to something else that didn't work. I will try to see if I can add in what did end up working, but you can see I try to move the nightstands and the window, and nothing just wants to work. So I end up moving it over. I forgot when I actually made this family that they weren't married, but the Sims team did fix a glitch where your Sims previously couldn't scoot over to one side of the bed. Now they can. Do I think that that's really ideal for these parents? No, absolutely not. But like I said, I believe I go back through and change that. And then here I'm trying to furnish the sunroom that we created. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to put in there. I wasn't really thrilled with anything, but I did know that I wanted to use this coffee table in particular with the fireplace, and I knew I wanted a little plant in the corner. So I believe I end up using the other one. Yeah, I used the other one. I gotta say, I'm pretty disappointed that we only get 2 new plants, but we do get 3 new trash cans. 2 are outdoor trash cans and 1 is indoor, so I wanted to go ahead and add those. This layout is admittedly not the best because you walk directly into someone's kitchen. That table is not new, but I did use some of the new chairs. I end up changing this setup later in just a second because I wanted the high chairs to be against the wall. I really don't like high chairs in the game, but that's a separate point. And so there we go. Ended up moving it, separate the high chairs so that they're a little bit more functional. And I wanted to go ahead with an L kitchen. There are no new countertops for the pack, so I ended up using one of the ones from Dream Home Decorator, which I don't use too often, but I ended up really liking in this build. And I end up going through and changing that. I am very indecisive when I build, but I think that's part of the charm. So I tried to use the Snowy Escape fridge, and I really didn't like the way it looked, so I ended up using the one from the Cool Kitchen Stuff pack, and I believe that that's just a base game stove and a base game sink. If I weren't trying to build with all new items, I would probably not have used that trash can for the kitchen trash can. I probably would have used something else, and that seems more like a bedroom kind of trash can. It's a little bit more decorated, and as you can see, we get, as you can see, we get 8 new wallpapers. So I'm trying to figure out which one I want. I end up going with this darker swatch, and Scatterbrain kicks in, and I figure I should probably try and add my roof. I am absolutely horrible with roofing my builds. Roofing? I don't know exactly how to say that, but you'll see. I think maybe I could do this pyramid style, and that does not work, so I end up just building the roof and then changing it, or copying it and shrinking it to the proper size. It's not my favorite, but it's functional and it doesn't look absolutely awful, so I ended up going with it. I was thinking about adding that window to the area behind the stairs for cosmetic reasons, but I really just didn't like it. And then my Twitch chat decided that we should use the paint dripping, swooping wallpaper for the toddler's room, because it was kind of playful but still kind of neutral. And we ended up going with a neutral in the parents' bedroom with that molding and baseboards. And we ended up doing the same thing but different colors in the teens' room. We ended up using that white hexagon wallpaper in the bathrooms, and we thought about it for the kitchen, but we ended up going with this parenthood wallpaper instead because it also had the matching backsplash and still looked just as good in our opinion. It was a very kind of neutral house. We end up going through and doing the floors later. I always save everything for the end. I tried to use, we got one new flooring with the pack, and I so desperately wanted to use it, but I just wasn't a fan of it. So I ended up going with this base game tile, and if you press Control F on your keyboard, then you can do the little triangles, the little quarter tiles, and then you just press Control F to get back out of it. I'm not sure what that command is on keyboard or on consoles. And then we used the Pets expansion pack for the rest of the house's flooring. I debated doing carpets in the bedroom, but we ended up just putting some rugs down, and here you can also see me struggling to figure out what flooring to put in the bathrooms because I did an all-white wall. The mirror that's in the downstairs bathroom is one of the new ones, one of our 3 new ones, but I end up using a different one upstairs. And if you saw the off-center windows, then just know that that bothered me too, but it fit with the room that it was in, and that is one problem that I tend to run into of making my build with no real general direction. And I wanted to use this circular rug in the toddler's room, as well as you'll see me place it in the teenage girl's bedroom later on after I struggle with which toddler bed to put down. I end up switching to the race car bed in just a second, and then later on changed my swatches anyway to go with the proper nightstand. I wanted something that really either toddler could sleep in, and not have it be dedicated to this kid sleeps in this bed and this kid sleeps in that bed, because I found that doesn't typically work very well in my game. And there I am just kind of explaining that as well. And then I was struggling to figure out what rug to put in the parents' room. I ended up going with that one and this flowered swatch, which I really do love. It's pretty, but it's also kind of subtle in its own special way. And then I start to round out some of those diagonals, and I go back and I fix that bookshelf as well. I was trying to get over the clipping of it, and it ended up just not working. So there you can see I put the same rug in the teenager's room, but in the rainbow swatch. I thought that fit her pretty well. And then yet again the same rug, but in red for the brother's room. I believe I go with this green wallpaper that I'm about to put up. I wasn't sure if it quite fit, but my chat seemed to like it, so we went with it. And I wanted something for the brother's room that played off the red accents that he had going on, but a fully red room just seemed to be a bit too much. I didn't really want to go with blue at first because it seemed like, oh yes, boy has blue room. But we ended up finding one that was okay, and it wasn't the same as the parents' room. It wasn't super young, and it still kind of fit his overall blue and red theme. I added the bowling night stuffed packs dresser. This is, you can see a couple of the new wardrobes for the pack. I ended up using this kids' room one, but I was trying to avoid the windows because, as I've said before, you really do need both spots. You saw me struggling with it earlier. They are still a bit finicky. I wouldn't say buggy or glitchy, but they are very finicky to get going. And then we got some new clutter for the pack, which I really do love. We got some makeup items, we got some study items, we got some laundry and a couple trophies here and there. We also got this floor decoration, this floor clutter, which you can only use if you have a really big room, because something that I forgot and ended up having to take out later is the fact that the 2x2 space, your sim cannot walk through it. I think it would be interesting if they could, or maybe that clutter could be classified as a rug so that they can walk over it, because you might step over some of the clutter in your room, but you don't completely avoid it. You know, if there's some clothes or something on the floor, there's a good chance that I at least end up stepping on it. So I thought that was kind of annoying, because with the way that I placed it, it just made the entire room unusable. So I ended up having to take it out later. I wanted to put it in the brother's room, but I knew that it would affect something somewhere. So instead I ended up adding these laundry piles, because I just went with a general kind of stereotype of teenage boys don't put away their laundry, or might throw something in the corner instead of putting it away. And then I added this cute little clock to the nightstand, and I was trying to figure out what clutter to put where. So, and I was trying to make it different from the daughter's room. I didn't want the exact same stuff in each room. I wanted them to each feel like their own entity, sort of. A space where two different individuals are. And that proved a bit difficult. As you'll see, I place things and then move them, and I ended up adding, I think, a new study set, or the more complex study set. But I was trying to keep to each sim sort of personality. And like I said, that just proved to be a little bit difficult for the space that I had. I am realizing now, as I try to put more things in each room, that I tend to build children and teenagers' rooms fairly small. They usually don't get a double bed unless it's a very rich or famous household, because that's just what I grew up with. Adults have a double bed, and if you're not an adult or living on your own, then you have a single bed. And here I ended up going with that colorful swatch for the nightstand and changed those beds around, so that way they still have the blue and red, and are similar but different. And that little statue on the toddler's room, if I'm remembering correctly, is called a Womp Womp, which I find adorable and hilarious. We get 4 new bookshelves in the game, in the pack, so I used 2 of them here, and I thought that they fit together pretty well. I have one of the new ones upstairs, and you can see that clipping finally did actually get to me. But I still have the giant diagonal in the parents' room and a slight one in the bathroom. And I was just trying to figure out what to do for railings, since I didn't add, or a banister, not a railing. And someone in my chat asked me why there wasn't a stair railing, so I went into a whole explanation, because this person didn't actually know that there are no sort of walking impairment or any real disability in the game, which I think is a major loss, but I have an idea as to why they might not have implemented something like that in the game yet. I don't think it's right that they haven't, but I have an idea of why they might not have done it yet. So you can see me trying to explain that in a way that is not a complete turnoff for the game as well. Later on, though, you will hopefully see me add a computer into the little hallway. It's not ideal, but I didn't know where else to put it unless I completely scrapped the idea of a sunroom. And I added a toddler potty to each level, as well as some of the little decorations like toilet paper and medicine cabinets and towels for when washing your hands. I don't know why exactly I chose orange. I think it's because I didn't bother to change the default color of the toddler potty. But, and then I used the Parenthood medicine cabinet for above the toilet. And there I am realizing that I probably need to add curtains to all of my windows. So we got a couple new curtains. I didn't end up using any of them in this build. I used this base game half window one, just because I didn't really know what exactly to do with any of them. And I added the curtains to that one window because all the others have the ivy covering them, but that one is also at the very front of the house, and it's just very open for what it is. Then I wanted a runner in the hallway as well. I ended up putting some things in the backyard for toddlers, so the slide and the playhouse, which is amazing for their imagination skill if you've never used it before. As well as the little Lego bricks and a pool. And then I had to test out, because I placed the windows, if they could still get up through the window, and they can. They just kind of clip through it a little bit. And so in just a moment you'll see that I decided I wanted this porch to actually be functional. So I added a railing and a little sunbathing chair, a lounge chair. But I really couldn't do a whole lot, and it didn't make sense to put an outdoor love seat or a couple chairs out there because of the way that they would have had to face. It would have been looking into the wall and the teenagers' bedrooms. And that just felt a little creepy.